On a hot July morning in 2015, the crew of the small fishing boat San Miguel, off the coast of the Philippines, encountered a discovery they never expected. When Captain Rodriguez turned his binoculars toward the island's shore, he couldn't believe his eyes. Smoke was rising from there, a thin line of smoke extending toward the sky. But this wasn't ordinary smoke. It was intensifying at regular intervals, then diminishing, as if someone was trying to send a message. "Impossible," Rodriguez murmured. This island wasn't even on the map, just a rocky outcrop. No one could live there. But as they approached, what they saw surprised them even more. Regularly arranged stones on the shore, an artificial shelter, and most surprisingly, a human figure. Who was this man, and how long had he been living there? The answer to this question would reveal one of modern world's most incredible survival stories. Thomas Walker was born in 1965 in Liverpool to a middle-class family. His love for seafaring was a family tradition passed from father to son. His grandfather had served in the merchant navy. His father had also worked on cargo ships for many years. For Thomas, the sea was not just a profession, but a way of life. Thomas had grown up intertwined with the sea since childhood. He would run around Liverpool's harbor neighborhoods, watching ships for hours. When his father first took him aboard a ship at age 12, he had felt the mesmerizing power of the sea, the rhythm of the waves, the smell of salt, the sense of infinity. All of it deeply affected him. During his high school years, his mind was always on the sea. While his friends planned their careers, Thomas only thought about working on ships. He worked hard to attend maritime school, excelling in mathematics and physics classes. He would never forget the day he first boarded a cargo ship at age 18. He had started as an apprentice on a ship called Northern Star, the infinity of the ocean, the rhythm of the waves, the ship's metal sounds mixing with the sea's roar. It was all like music to him. The first years were tough. Seasickness, exhausting shifts, homesickness. But Thomas didn't give up. With each voyage, he gained more experience, learning the secrets of the sea. At 25, he earned his marine engineering certificate. This was a great achievement for him. He was no longer just an apprentice, but a professional with technical knowledge. He could take responsibility for the engine room, the heart of ships. As the years passed, Thomas rapidly advanced in his maritime career. His strong physical build, composure, and technical knowledge made him a valuable marine engineer. From Europe to Asia, America to Africa, he had seen dozens of countries. Every port offered him a new adventure, every voyage a new experience. In his 30s, he was already an experienced sailor. He knew every sound of ship engines, understood every mood of the ocean. He worked for various cargo companies, learning different types of ships. By 2003, he was 38 years old, with 20 years of maritime experience. He had sold his house in Liverpool and focused entirely on sea life. He never thought about returning to land. At that time, Thomas was working as a marine engineer on a cargo ship called Pacific Star, based in Singapore. This was a modern ship with new technology. The crew consisted of 24 people, most of them experienced sailors. The ship made regular voyages on the Asia-Pacific route, carrying trade goods between various countries. Starting from Singapore, it visited ports in Japan, South Korea, Philippines, and Indonesia. For Thomas, this was routine work he had done thousands of times. Pacific Star was a 180-meter-long, 15,000-ton cargo ship. The engine room under Thomas's responsibility was on the lowest deck of the ship. Here were powerful diesel engines, generators, and various systems. Thomas ensured these machines operated, fixed their malfunctions, and performed their maintenance. Life on the ship was monotonous, but Thomas was used to it. He would wake up at 6 o'clock, check the engine room, and perform daily maintenance. He would have lunch with colleagues at noon and watch the sea from the deck in the evening. On the night of August 15th, 2003, Pacific Star was passing through waters between the Philippines and Indonesia. This was a familiar route they had taken dozens of times. Weather reports seemed ordinary, with expectations of light wind and calm seas. The crew continued their routines, and Thomas was doing final checks in the engine room. During the evening shift, everything was normal. The engines were running smoothly. There were no problems with any systems. Thomas had handed over to his colleague on the night shift and retired to his cabin. They would reach Indonesia's Surabaya port tomorrow. But the Pacific Ocean was an unpredictable place. Weather could change completely within minutes. This was the characteristic feature of tropical regions. After midnight, the wind began to increase rapidly. At first, there was nothing to worry about. Ships were accustomed to such weather conditions. Thomas was sleeping in his cabin, but could feel the ship swaying. At 1:30 a.m., the waves began to grow even larger. The ship was rocking from side to side, sometimes splashing water onto the deck. The watch captain was monitoring the situation, but there was no reason for alarm yet. At 2 a.m., the captain gave a warning over the radio from the bridge. All crew attention. Storm intensifying. Everyone stay in position. Thomas woke up and immediately went down to the engine room. During stormy weather, machine control needed to be increased. He could feel how the ship was swaying, but as an experienced sailor, he knew this was normal. He checked the situation in the engine room. The engines were running powerfully, generators were producing electricity, hydraulic systems, cooling system, fuel pumps, everything seemed fine. At 2:30 a.m., the storm became much more violent. Waves were now washing over the ship. Thomas was trying to maintain his balance in the engine room, listening to the vibrations of the machines. At 3 a.m., a terrible wave came from the starboard side of the ship. It was so big and powerful that it made the ship lean to one side. Thomas fell against the wall in the engine room. At 3:30 a.m., a terrible sound was heard, as if the ship's side had been hit with a giant hammer. A metallic crack, then the sound of water. Thomas lost his balance, rolling on the metal floor. Alarm bells began to ring. This was a sound Thomas had never heard before. In his 20-year maritime career, he knew various sounds of ships, but this was different, much more dangerous. Mayday, Mayday, this is Pacific Star. The captain's voice came over the radio. Hull breach, ship taking on water. Our coordinates. Thomas's heart began to beat frantically. Hull breach meant a hole in the ship's side. If water was entering, the situation was very serious. He ran up from the engine room to see the situation on deck. While climbing the stairs, he could feel how the ship was taking on water. The inclination was changing. The ship was getting heavier. Water pumps were working, but were insufficient. When he reached the deck, the scene he saw was terrible. On the starboard side of the ship, just above the water, there was a large hole. Giant waves were entering through here. Each wave carried tons of water into the ship. The crew was running around in panic, preparing life rafts. The captain on the bridge was constantly making mayday calls on the radio. Our position is 6°15 north, 120°30 east. Emergency assistance needed. Abandon ship. All crew to life rafts. This was the captain's final order. Thomas, as an experienced sailor, knew what he had to do. He put on his life jacket and ran to the nearest life raft. Other crew members were doing the same. Everyone was trying to survive. But the ship was taking on water so fast that there wasn't time to properly lower the life rafts into the sea. The ship had begun to tilt toward the starboard side. Thomas ran to one of the life rafts on the left side. Together with two colleagues, they tried to lower the raft into the sea. But at that moment, a giant wave came. The wave was so big and powerful that it completely covered the ship's deck. It separated Thomas from the ship and threw him into the sea. Cold water immediately surrounded him. His lungs began to burn. Struggling in the water, he surfaced. He was breathless. Salt water had entered his mouth. Looking around, he saw the ship rapidly sinking. Pacific Star was being swallowed as if by a giant monster. First, the bow section went underwater. Then the engine room, the ship Thomas had worked on for 5 months, was disappearing before his eyes. He tried to search for other crew members but couldn't see anyone in the darkness and waves. Only he was there, in the middle of the cold ocean. He was lucky. There was a life raft nearby. He held onto it and tried to survive. The life raft had emergency supplies on it: water bottles, biscuit packages, flare gun. The waves were dragging him here and there. He didn't know which direction he was going. The wind was still strong. The waves were big. All he could do was hold on to the life raft and wait. Thomas stayed in the water for hours. His body had gone numb from the cold. He couldn't feel his fingers. When the sun rose, he looked around, but there was only endless blue water. No ship, no land, no other life raft. He was alone. The first day was terrible. The sun was burning. His lips had started to crack. He could drink very little from the water bottle on the life raft. He needed to conserve it. His mouth was dry from thirst, but he was surrounded by salt water. He couldn't drink it. He also ate very little of the biscuits. He didn't know how many days he would stay in the water. The food shouldn't run out. Cramps were starting to form in his stomach. The second day became even harder. His body had started to tire. Even holding onto the life raft was becoming difficult. The sun was very intense at noon, while cold wind blew in the evening. Sometimes he would fall asleep, dreaming he was on land. He would imagine sleeping in his house in Liverpool, in his warm bed, but the sound of waves would return him to reality. He wanted to signal with the flare gun, but there were no ships around. He shouldn't waste them. There were only 3 flares. On the evening of the 3rd day, he saw something in the distance. At first, he thought it was a hallucination. He might be seeing hallucinations from hunger and thirst, but as he got closer, he was sure. There was a small island there, rocky and wooded. With his remaining energy, he began swimming toward the island. He was dragging the life raft behind him. The supplies on it shouldn't be lost. The waves were carrying him toward the shore. Swimming was so difficult that he thought he would drown several times. But the island was there, within reachable distance. He continued swimming with his last strength. Finally, his feet felt sand, and he threw himself onto shore. He was alive, but the real struggle was just beginning. Thomas just rested for the first hours. His body was covered with salt. His lips were cracked. His skin was burned. He could feel the effects of staying in salt water for 3 days. But he was alive, and he was grateful for that. When he began exploring the island, he realized it was small, about 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. In the center were small hills 200 meters high, with rocky shores around. The island was in the tropical climate zone. There were palm trees, various fruit trees, thick shrubs. It also seemed rich in fauna, birds, insects, small reptiles. His most important need was water. While exploring the island, he found a small stream, fresh water. He knelt down and began drinking. This was the most delicious water of his life. After being surrounded by salt water for days, fresh water was like a miracle. Following the stream, he found its source. It came from the hills in the center of the island, forming a small pool and flowing to the sea. The water was clean and clear, drinkable. The shelter issue was his second priority. He slept on the beach the first nights, but had trouble when it rained. Tropical rains were very intense and could last for hours. He found a small cave among the trees and settled there. The cave was dry and sheltered. Wind couldn't enter because the entrance was narrow. The interior was about 3x4 meters wide. He organized the cave with materials he took from the life raft. He prepared a sleeping area with plastic covers, made shelves for food. It had become a primitive but functional shelter. Finding food was very difficult. There were various fruit trees on the island, but he didn't know which ones were edible. He had to be careful. If he got poisoned, he would have no chance. The first trial and error attempts were dangerous. Tasting a fruit very little, waiting, seeing his body's reaction. This process took days. Some fruits caused nausea, some caused headaches. Finding coconut trees was great luck. Coconuts were both food and water sources. The water inside was sweet and nutritious. The meat was also filling. He needed to learn to catch fish. What did he have? Belt buckle, shirt buttons, shoelaces. Could he make fishing equipment from these? In the first weeks, Thomas acted very amateurishly. He tried to bend the belt buckle to make a hook, but it didn't work. He used the shoelace as fishing line, but the fish escaped. He learned by observing. He watched which fruits birds ate. If they ate them, he could eat them too. He noticed which leaves insects preferred. He also watched fish catching birds. He learned how they moved, at what hours they hunted. He noticed which fish lived in shallow waters. He never forgot the day he caught his first fish. It was a small fish, but it was a great success for him. He had caught it with a spear made from bamboo pieces. He had to eat it raw, because he hadn't yet learned to make fire. Making fire took months. He tried the friction method, rubbing dry wood pieces against each other. He tried for hours but couldn't succeed. He tried hitting stones together, trying to create sparks. Finally, when he found a glass piece from the plastic parts of the life raft, he succeeded by focusing sunlight. When he lit his first fire, he was so happy that he cried. Fire changed his life. Now he could cook his food, warm himself at night, keep insects away. He decided never to let the fire go out. By the end of the second year, Thomas had completely adapted to the island. He knew which fruits were ripe, had mastered fishing. He had expanded his cave, making it more comfortable. He was also making new discoveries on the island, looking for better living spaces. In the third year, he discovered the island's animals, small wild boars, iguana-type reptiles, various bird species. Some could be dangerous. He needed to be careful. This year, he also went through his first serious illness, staying in the cave for days with fever and nausea. One day, he saw a large snake. He didn't know if it was poisonous, but he stayed away. He was living alone on the island. He couldn't take risks. During this period, he also began mapping the island, knowing every area in detail. In the fourth year, he tried farming. He planted fruit seeds, tried to grow vegetables. He failed because he had no knowledge about agriculture, but he continued trying and began achieving small successes. This year, he also climbed to the highest peak of the island and surveyed the surroundings. In the fifth year, he began to lose hope. No one was coming. No one was searching. He made smoke signals every day, drew large letters on the beach, but no response came. Had anyone else survived the sinking of Pacific Star? He wondered about his family, but there was no way to get news. During this period, he fell into deep depression. In the sixth year, he experienced winter depression. During this period, it rained constantly. The sun was rarely seen. He didn't leave his cave for days, just slept, but he gradually recovered and continued his survival struggle. He was beginning to master island life. In the seventh year, he had settled into routine: morning fishing, afternoon island exploration, evening shelter maintenance. His days passed like this. He no longer kept a calendar, measuring time by seasons. This year he made a big discovery. He found a fresh water source on the other side of the island. In the eighth year, he experienced a big storm. A hurricane hit the island. Trees fell. His shelter was damaged. He tried to survive the storm that lasted for days. After the storm, he rediscovered the island. Much had changed. This challenging experience made him even stronger. In the 9th year, he went through a major illness: fever, headache, nausea. He lay bedridden for days. His recovery was miraculous. The risk of death was very high without medical care. This experience reminded him how fragile life was. In the 10th year, Thomas had completely adapted to island life. He measured time not by days but by seasons: rainy season, dry season, storm season. His body had changed greatly. He had become stronger, more tanned, and agile. His hair had grown long. His beard had grown. In the 11th year, he made a big discovery. He found another small cave on the other side of the island. There were old bones inside. Maybe someone had come to the island before him. This discovery both excited and frightened him. He felt he wasn't alone, but also wondered about this person's fate. In the 12th year, he had lost hope of rescue. This island was his home now. He would stay here until he died. He talked to himself, lived with his memories, but physically, he had never been this strong. Just then, in July 2015, he caught the attention of fishing boat captain Rodriguez's binoculars. They had seen the smoke signals. "There's a man there," he shouted to his crew. When Thomas saw them, he couldn't believe it. Finally, someone had come after 12 years. He was so surprised that he couldn't move at first. Then he started running, waved his arms, shouted. When the boat crew approached him and saw Thomas's condition, they were shocked. This was a long-haired, bearded, bronze-skinned, almost naked man, but he looked healthy. "My name is Thomas Walker," he said, speaking broken English. "I've been here for 12 years. My ship sank. I'm the only survivor." Rodriguez and his crew couldn't believe him. How could he have lived on this small island for 12 years? Thomas showed them his shelter, explained how he caught fish, demonstrated fire-making techniques. Everything was real. When he was rescued, Thomas was 50 years old, but his body was as strong and healthy as a 35-year-old's. Island life had made him strong. Natural lifestyle had preserved his health. Return to the modern world wasn't easy. 12 years was a long time, and many things had changed. But Thomas was alive, and that was the most important thing. Thomas Walker's story showed us how powerful human will can be. It was an example of finding life even in impossible conditions, of never losing hope. The island had strengthened him instead of killing him. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.